The twin suns were setting over the alien market, painting the streets in gold and shadow. Merchants shouted from their stalls, selling strange glowing fruits, shimmering fabrics, and tools that hummed with energy. Children of many species ran between the legs of shoppers, their laughter mixing with the clinking of coins and the hiss of steam vents. The air was thick with the smell of roasted meat, metallic dust, and the sharp scent of alien spices. It was the kind of place where no one noticed a single figure slipping through the crowd. But this figure moved quickly, darting like a shadow from one alley to the next. Her name was Lyra, and her heart was beating fast. She clutched a small pouch in her hand, the stolen coins rattling softly inside. It was not much, but it was enough to buy what she needed to survive another day. Her green skin glistened with sweat under the heat of the twin suns. She knew the market well, every shortcut, every blind corner. If she moved fast enough, she could disappear before anyone realized what she had done. But today, there was a problem. Someone had seen her. The sound of boots was behind her, not the heavy clanging boots of the alien guards, but something different, faster, smoother, yet each step landed with weight. She risked a glance over her shoulder and saw him, a human, tall, broad-shouldered. His eyes fixed on her like a hunter on prey. She had seen humans before, working as mercenaries or traders. They were strong, yes, but slower than her kind. Her people could run for hours, their legs built for speed and endurance. She smiled to herself, certain she could lose him. Lyra slipped into a narrow side street, weaving through the maze-like paths of the market's underbelly. Cracked walls leaned inward, dripping with condensation from leaking pipes above. The shadows grew darker here, the smell stronger and less pleasant. She knew this place well enough to vanish completely. She quickened her pace, her feet almost silent on the damp stone. For a moment, she thought the footsteps had stopped. Then she heard them again, closer this time. Her smile faded. This human was not slowing down. In fact, the sound of his breathing was steady, controlled. He wasn't chasing like a desperate guard, he was tracking her. She turned sharply into another alley, hoping to lose him in the crowd that always gathered at the spice vendor's corner. But when she pushed through the tangle of shoppers, she saw him again. He was moving through the crowd like water around stones. Every time she zigzagged, he adjusted without hesitation. A flicker of unease ran through her. She could hear her own pulse in her ears now. It wasn't fear of being caught that bothered her. It was not understanding how she had been chased before, many times. Always she escaped, always she was faster. But now, it felt like the human knew where she was going before she did. She dashed through a gap between two market stalls, the wooden frame scraping her shoulder. A jar of glowing powder tumbled and smashed on the ground, spraying blue sparks into the air. Vendors shouted curses behind her. She ignored them and kept running. Her lungs began to burn, but her pride refused to let her stop. She imagined the human falling behind, tripping over the crowd. But when she glanced back again, he was still there. His face was calm, focused, as if this was nothing more than a morning walk. Lyra turned down the tightest alley she knew. Only one person could pass at a time, and it was lined with old storage crates. If she moved fast enough, she could reach the hidden ladder at the far end and climb to the rooftops. From there, she could vanish into the city's winding skyline. She sprinted, her fingers brushing the first crate. Then, without warning, a shadow crossed her path. The human was there, already in front of her. Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea how he got there. She skidded to a stop, her boots splashing in a puddle. The human took a step toward her, his movements deliberate. She darted to the side, desperate to escape. But then it happened, so fast she barely saw it. His leg hooked around hers in a precise, powerful motion. Her body flipped, and in an instant, she was on the ground. Pain shot up her side as his hold locked her in place. It wasn't the crushing grip of a guard, it was controlled. She struggled, but it was like being caught in steel cables. The human leaned down, his voice calm but firm. "Stop fighting," he said, "or you'll get hurt worse." Her breath came in sharp bursts, For the first time in a long while, Lyra felt something she didn't like, not fear of pain, but the realization that she had been outmatched, completely, and in that moment, she knew this chase was not over, it was only the beginning. The narrow alley was colder than the rest of the market. Tall walls rose on both sides, blocking most of the fading sunlight. Pipes ran overhead, dripping strange green water into shallow puddles below. The air smelled of rust, damp stone, and something sour that clung to the back of the throat. Lyra twisted in the human's grip, her mind racing for a way out. His leg lock was still firm, his balance perfect. No matter how she shifted, she could not break free. He was close now, his shadow covering her completely. She could hear his steady breathing, calm and unshaken. Her people had a saying, "A predator that does not pant is a predator that does not tire." And right now, the truth of it made her skin prickle. She looked up, her emerald eyes narrowing. Humans were not supposed to be this fast. They were not supposed to read movement like this. Yet here he was, holding her like a seasoned hunter, who had done this 1,000 times before. "Let me go," she hissed, her voice sharp but quiet. The human didn't answer immediately. His gaze swept the alley behind her, scanning the dark corners. Only after a moment did he speak. "You're not safe out here," he said in a tone that was too steady to be a threat. She laughed bitterly. "Safe? From you?" He didn't laugh back. Instead, his eyes moved past her again, as if expecting someone or something to arrive. She felt a drop of the green water land on her shoulder. It stung, just enough to make her flinch. This part of the market was dangerous for more reasons than thieves and guards. No honest trader came here unless they had to. The human released the pressure of his leg lock, but his hand closed around her wrist before she could run. His grip was not cruel, but it was unbreakable. "What do you want?" she demanded. "Answers," he replied simply, before she could speak again. The sound of boots echoed from the far end of the alley, not the light step of a lone guard, but the heavy, synchronized march of soldiers. The rhythm made her blood run cold. They were close, too close. Her body went still, every instinct telling her to disappear. But there was nowhere to hide, no crates, no open doors, only the solid walls pressing in. She realized then that running into this alley had been a mistake. The human's hand tightened on her wrist. "Who's after you?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, refusing to speak. If she told him, he might hand her over. If she stayed silent, he might let her go and she could take her chances alone. But the sound of those marching boots made that choice harder. With each passing second, the human glanced at the shadows behind them. He stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. "You're not a thief," he said, not asking, but stating. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "People steal for greed," he continued, "but you steal to survive." The truth of it stung worse than the green water. She hated that he could read her so easily. The soldiers' voices were clear now, their alien language sharp and clipped. They were checking each alley, one by one. Lyra's pulse hammered in her ears. If they found her, there would be no trial, only the cold metal of a prison cell or worse. She pulled against the human's grip one last time, but he didn't let go. Instead, he leaned in, his words quick and urgent. "If I let you go, they'll catch you in seconds." Her eyes narrowed. "And why do you care?" His jaw tightened. "Because I know what happens when they take someone away." The marching stopped. The soldiers had reached the mouth of their alley. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to make herself small. The human shifted, placing himself between her and the open end of the alley. It was such a simple movement, but it blocked her from sight completely. The soldiers' shadows stretched across the ground. She could hear the faint hum of their weapons. One wrong move and they would be on them in an instant. The human's body was still, his breathing slow. It was like he was made of stone. The soldiers paused, scanning the alley with sharp eyes. One took a step forward, but another barked a short command. They turned away. the sound of their boots fading into the distance. Lyra didn't realize. She'd been holding her breath until her chest ached. The human stepped back, releasing her wrist. "You're welcome," he said quietly. She glared at him, unsure whether to thank him or run. But deep inside, she knew the chase had changed. He was no longer just the hunter. Now he was something else entirely, and that made him even more dangerous. Lyra's muscles tensed, ready to bolt the second his grip loosened. The soldier's footsteps were gone now, replaced by the distant hum of the market beyond the walls. The human stood in front of her, blocking the narrow path like an unmovable wall. His posture wasn't threatening, but there was a weight in the air, the kind that told her this man knew exactly what she would do before she even moved. "Move aside," she said, her voice low. Instead of stepping back, he tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle. His eyes flicked to the pouch in her hand, still clutched tight against her chest. "What's in it?" he asked. She tightened her grip. "Nothing for you." For a moment, neither moved. Then she darted to the left, fast as a striking snake, but he was faster. She barely saw the shift in his stance before his legs swept forward, hooking around hers with precision. Her feet left the ground, her body twisting in midair. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. Before she could recover, he had dropped to one knee beside her. His leg trapped hers in an iron hold, his arm bracing her shoulder to keep her down. She thrashed, claws scraping against the stone. But his grip didn't waver. The lock wasn't just strong, it was smart. Every time she twisted, his weight shifted perfectly to counter it. It was the hold of someone who had done this before, not just in a street fight, but in training. Real training. Her breath came in sharp bursts. "Get off me," she growled. His reply was calm, steady. "You'll only hurt yourself." She glared at him, but her mind was racing. If she couldn't overpower him, she would have to outthink him. Her gaze darted to the alley walls, too high to climb without a run-up. The crates at the far end, too far away. The ladder she had aimed for before, blocked by his position. For the first time, she realized she had nowhere to go. The human's eyes softened, though his grip didn't. "I'm not here to hand you over," he said quietly. She didn't believe him. "Then why chase me?" she asked. His jaw flexed, like the answer was something he didn't want to say. "Because someone else is chasing you." The word stopped her cold. She opened her mouth to deny it, but the look in his eyes told her he already knew. "How?" she asked, almost in a whisper. He didn't answer directly. "I've seen this before," he said. "I know what it looks like when someone is running for their life." Her pulse quickened. If he knew that much, then maybe he knew more than he should. The grip on her leg loosened slightly, enough for her to shift, but not escape. She considered making a break for it anyway. But then the sound came, the one she feared most. A faint metallic clicking echoing through the walls. It was the sound of alien trackers locking onto a target. Her stomach dropped. The human's eyes flicked toward the sound, without another word. He stood and pulled her up with him. His grip moved from her leg to her arm, firm, but no longer a restraint. "We have to move," he said. She hesitated. "Why help me?" He looked at her for half a heartbeat. "Because you don't deserve what's coming." Before she could respond, he was moving, not running blindly, but weaving through the shadows with calculated steps. Every turn he took seemed to avoid patrol. Every pause came just before the clicking sound grew louder. It was as if he could sense danger before it arrived. They reached the mouth of another alley. Lyra's instinct screamed at her to break free and vanish into the chaos of the market. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way he kept glancing back to make sure she was still behind him. Or maybe it was the quiet certainty in his voice when he said, "This way." Whatever it was, she followed, not because she trusted him, but because the trap had already snapped shut, and she needed any way out she could find. The narrow path opened into a dim courtyard. Faded banners hung from the cracked walls, swaying gently in the wind. Somewhere far above, the muffled noise of the market continued. But here it was almost silent. The human finally stopped moving. Releasing her arm, Lyra stepped back immediately, keeping her distance. Her chest rose and fell, each breath sharp with caution. She expected him to demand the pouch again. Instead, he just looked at her. It was not the look of a guard who had caught a criminal. It was different. His eyes scanned her face, her posture, even the way her hands were clenched. They were not cold eyes, not cruel, but they were searching, like he was trying to read a book written in a language he almost understood. Lyra hated it. She hated that she could not tell what he was thinking. With most people, she could guess their next move before they made it. But this human, he was unpredictable. "Why are you still here?" she asked, her tone sharp. "Because you're still running." He answered simply. His voice was calm, but there was weight in the words. She looked away, focusing on the old banners above. They were from a time before the market belonged to her enemies, a time when her people were free. The thought made her jaw tighten. "You don't know anything about me," she said. "Maybe," he replied, "but I know enough." Her eyes snapped back to his. There was no arrogance in his tone, no mockery. It was as if he was stating a fact he couldn't be wrong about. It unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. She had lived her life keeping her truths hidden, yet somehow, this stranger was peeling them away without her consent. The air between them was heavy. She shifted her stance, ready to bolt if he came closer. But he didn't move toward her. Instead, he crouched down, resting his forearms on his knees. "What's in the pouch?" he asked again, softer this time. She hesitated. "It's mine," she said finally. "That's all you need to know." He didn't press further. Instead, he looked toward the far end of the courtyard, where another narrow street disappeared into shadow. "They'll keep searching," he said. "They don't stop until they find what they're looking for." His words made her grip the pouch tighter. She knew exactly who they were, and she knew exactly what they wanted. The human's gaze returned to her for the first time. She noticed the faint scar running from his temple down toward his jaw. It wasn't fresh. It was old, healed, and deep. A scar like that wasn't from an accident. It was from a fight. She wondered what kind of battles he had been in, and why someone like him was in a place like this. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her for another long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost cautious. "I want to know why you stole it," she frowned. "Why do you care?" "Because," he said, "if I know why, I'll know how to keep you alive." The words caught her off guard. No one had said anything like that to her in years. Most people just wanted to use her, trade her, or hand her over for a reward. This man's offer was strange. It didn't make sense. Her instinct screamed not to trust him, but there was something in his eyes, something steady, unshaken. It was not pity, not greed. It was recognition. She felt her throat tighten. She stepped back, shaking her head. "I don't need your help," she said. His expression didn't change. "Then you'll be dead by nightfall," he replied. The quiet certainty in his tone made her pause before she could speak again. A sharp sound echoed from somewhere beyond the courtyard, the clicking of the alien trackers, closer than before. The human's head turned instantly, eyes narrowing. "They're sweeping this sector," he said. Then his gaze locked back on hers. "You have two choices," he continued. "Come with me, or face them alone." Lyra's heart pounded. She didn't want to admit it, but in his eyes she saw no hesitation, no hidden malice. Just the look of someone who had already decided to protect her, whether she wanted it or not. The clicking of the alien trackers faded for a moment, but Lyra knew it wouldn't last. They never gave up. They hunted until they caught what they wanted, and this time, what they wanted was her. She stood in the middle of the courtyard, gripping the pouch so tightly her knuckles hurt. The human was watching her closely. He wasn't breathing hard, wasn't showing any sign of fear. It was like he had done this before, too many times before. "You're still not telling me why," he said. "There's nothing to tell," she replied sharply. Her voice was harder than she intended. She turned away, scanning the dark alley beyond the courtyard. But even as she looked for an escape, she knew there wasn't one. Not from them. The human stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "I've seen people steal for greed," he said. "I've seen them steal for revenge." His voice was calm but unshakable. "But you're stealing because someone's forcing you to." The words made her chest tighten. She hated how close he was to the truth. "I'm not your problem," she said, refusing to meet his eyes. "Then whose problem are you?" he asked. Quietly, her fingers curled tighter around the pouch. The truth burned at the back of her throat. She had kept it hidden for so long that saying it out loud felt dangerous. But maybe he already knew, maybe he had figured it out from the way she kept looking over her shoulder. She swallowed hard. "They have something," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "What?" he asked. "My brother." The human's expression shifted. It wasn't surprise, it was understanding. "They took him months ago," she continued. I don't even know if he's alive." Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for letting it. "They said I could get him back if I brought them this." She lifted the pouch slightly. "It's some kind of key. I don't even know what it opens." The human's jaw tightened. "They're lying," he said. The certainty in his tone made her flinch. "You don't know that," she snapped. "Yes, I do," he said. "Because I've heard the same promise before." His eyes darkened. "And I've seen what happens to the ones who believe it." Her stomach churned. Part of her wanted to yell at him, to tell him he was wrong. But deep down, she had always feared the same thing. She had always known this might be a trap. Still, she had no choice. If there was even the smallest chance her brother was alive, she had to try. "You think you can just walk away after this?" the human asked. "They'll keep coming, even if you hand it over." She shook her head. "I'll deal with that later." "There might not be a later," he said sharply. For the first time there was a flash of frustration in his voice. "You think you can outrun them forever?" "I've outrun worse," she said, though the words felt hollow. A sudden noise cut the argument short. The clicking was back louder, closer. Not just one patrol this time, it was more. The human turned his head slightly, listening. "They've split into two groups," he murmured. "One's coming from the south, the other from the east." Lyra froze. "They're closing in," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "And they're not going to stop until we're surrounded." He stepped forward, holding out his hand. "Give me the pouch," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "No, I'm not taking it for myself," he said. "I'm keeping it safe, trust me." The words made her laugh bitterly. "Trust you? I don't even know your name." He paused for a heartbeat, then said, "Cade." She didn't know why, but the name hit differently. It wasn't just a name, it felt like a promise. Before she could decide whether to give it to him, the clicking turned into metallic stomps. Shadows began to stretch across the walls of the courtyard. Cade's voice was steady. "They're here." He took a step toward her, eyes locked on hers. "You have one chance. Lyra, come with me now, or it's over." Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. She knew the truth. Once they closed in, there would be no escape, and yet, handing her fate to a stranger was almost as dangerous. Her eyes darted to the shadows, then back to him. She didn't like her choices, but sometimes unwanted truths leave no room for better ones. Asterisk. The metallic stomps grew louder, echoing off the stone walls like a drumbeat of doom. Lyra's grip on the pouch tightened until her fingers ached. Shadows of the trackers stretched across the courtyard, long and jagged. Cade didn't move back. He stood tall, between her and the approaching danger. His eyes were calm, but there was a sharp focus in them, the kind of focus that belonged to someone who had been here before, someone who had survived it. "You have to decide," he said. His voice was steady, but there was no softness in it. "Now, this isn't about trust anymore, it's about survival." Lyra's heart pounded. Every instinct told her to run, but every exit was already cut off. The east and south alleys were blocked by the approaching squads. The north path was a dead end, and the west. The west led deeper into the old quarter, a place even she avoided. "I don't make deals with strangers," she hissed. "Then think of me as your only weapon." He replied without blinking. She almost laughed at the arrogance, but then she saw his stance shift slightly. His weight moved onto the balls of his feet. His shoulders lowered just enough to keep his center of gravity ready. It wasn't arrogance, it was readiness. He was preparing to fight. "Give me the pouch," he said again. Her eyes narrowed. "So you can run off with it?" "So I can keep it from them while you get clear," he shot back. "And what if you disappear instead?" "Then you made the wrong choice," he said flatly. His honesty startled her more than any promise could have. The stunts were closer. Now she could hear the faint static hum of the tracker's targeting systems powering up. Cade took a step forward. "Lyra, if they get that key, they won't need you anymore." Her chest tightened. She knew exactly what that meant. They'd kill her before nightfall. The first silhouette appeared at the south entrance. Tall, armored, with glowing red optics scanning the courtyard. A second shadow joined it from the east. They moved with slow precision. Confident their prey was trapped, Cade didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted sideways, positioning himself. "So the trackers couldn't see her yet. You've got 5 seconds to decide," he said. 5 seconds before they turn the corner and see you. Her breath came in sharp bursts. This was it, the moment. She looked at him, searching for any sign of betrayal in his face, but all she saw was steel in his eyes. Not cold steel, the kind that was forged for a purpose she didn't yet understand. 3 seconds, he warned. The shadows grew sharper, Lyra's. Mine screamed at her not to do it, but her hand moved before she could stop it. She pressed the pouch into his palm. His fingers closed around it instantly. No hesitation, no gloating, just a small nod. Without another word, he moved. It wasn't a run, it was a blur. In 2 steps he was at the far wall. His hand found a rusted panel she'd never noticed before. A quick twist, a click, and part of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. "In," he ordered. She hesitated only a heartbeat before slipping inside. The space was barely wide enough for her shoulders. She turned just in time to see him pull the panel shut. The courtyard vanished from sight. Replaced by darkness, they moved quickly, the narrow corridor forcing them single file. The sound of the stomps was now muffled, but still close. "How did you know about this?" She whispered. "I've been here before," he said simply. The words were heavy with something unspoken. Before she could ask, he added, "And I wasn't on the safe side last time." The corridor opened into a wider chamber, lit by a single flickering light. It looked like an old maintenance station, abandoned for years. Cade checked the shadows at every corner before speaking again. "They won't follow us here, not yet." Lyra folded her arms, her voice sharp. "You're going to tell me who you are now." He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Someone who's fought them before," he said. "And someone who's lost more to them than you can imagine." His voice was quiet, but there was a weight in it that made her stop pressing. It wasn't the time for more questions, not yet. The old maintenance station was silent, except for the faint hum of the failing light. Lyra stood with her back against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. Cade moved toward a metal hatch in the far corner, his steps quick and deliberate. "They'll figure out where we went," he said. "We can't stay here." She frowned. "Where does that lead?" "Up," he replied. Her eyes narrowed. "Up to what?" "To a way out," he said simply, before she could argue. A deep metallic thud echoed through the corridor they had just come from. The trackers had found the passage. Their boots struck the floor like war drums. Cade didn't hesitate. He spun the hatch wheel and shoved it open. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and ozone. Lyra followed him into the dark. Her legs still tense from running, they emerged onto the slanted roof of an old storage building. The city stretched before them, endless metal, narrow streets, and 1,000 glowing lights. But the glow wasn't just from the city. Behind them, at least 3 red targeting beams swept across the rooftops. They're already above ground, Cade said. Lyra's heart lurched. How do we lose them? She asked. He looked at her with a faint, almost reckless smile. We don't lose them, we outrun them. Without another word, he took off across the roof. His movements were fast, balanced, almost too precise for the uneven terrain. Lyra followed, her boots slipping slightly on the wet surface. Every leap between buildings made her chest tighten. The wind howled past her ears. Below, the market's narrow streets flashed by in a blur of light and shadow. A sudden blast of heat grazed her side. She glanced back and saw a tracker on the nearest roof, its weapon glowing with energy. Cade grabbed her arm mid-run, pulling her behind a tall ventilation unit. The next shot slammed into the metal, sending sparks flying. They're trying to corner us, Cade said. His eyes darted to the left. There, he pointed toward a crumbling bridge between two taller buildings. It's risky, she said. It's the only way, he replied. They sprinted for the bridge. The roof beneath their feet creaked dangerously as they reached the edge. The gap between buildings yawned below them, a dizzying drop into blackness. Cade jumped first, his form cutting clean through the air before landing with a roll. Lyra gritted her teeth and followed. For a moment, weightlessness gripped her. Then her boots hit the other side hard. Pain shot up her legs, but she didn't stop moving. The bridge was narrow, half collapsed. Every step made the old metal groan. Halfway across, a blast tore through the side railing. Shards of glowing metal spun past her face. Cade! She shouted. He turned, running back toward her. One of the trackers had landed at the start of the bridge, its red optics fixed on her. Before it could fire again, Cade slammed into it with the force of a charging beast. The two went over the side, disappearing into the shadows below. Cade! Her voice cracked. For a second, there was no sound except the faint hiss of rain. Then, from the darkness, a heavy thud echoed, followed by movement. Cade climbed back up the side of the building, his hands gripping the cracked stone. He swung himself over, breathing hard but still steady. Come on, he said. We're not done yet. They kept moving. Weaving between rooftops, the city lights began to thin, replaced by the dim glow of the old quarter. Lyra could feel her strength fading, but Cade never slowed. Finally, they dropped down onto a deserted balcony, shielded from view by hanging cloths. For the first time since they had started running, it was quiet. No red beams, no stomping boots, just the sound of the wind. Lyra leaned against the railing. You could have left me, she said. Cade glanced at her, his expression unreadable. I told you I've lost people to them before, he replied. Then he held up the pouch. We're keeping this out of their hands, but tomorrow. You're telling me everything. Before she could answer, a faint mechanical click came from the shadows. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she turned her head toward the sound. There, in the darkness beyond the cloth, a single red optic glowed. They hadn't escaped at all.